So yesterday we spoke about basically theory about what exactly is DevOps. As we all know, DevOps is not just about tool. It's the cultural and the mindset change wherein your development and operation team coming together. Okay, and the business team is playing a critical role in making sure the DevOps is formed. Tools are only one of the pillar. Without tools, can you achieve DevOps? The answer is no. You need tools in order to achieve DevOps methodology, the principle, because DevOps talks about collaboration, working together. So all these tools helps you to do that. Okay. So that is DevOps. Then we spoke about what exactly is waterfall model, how waterfall model, what are the benefits of waterfall model, how waterfall model was different than using waterfall model, how we came up with agile. Then after agile, how we have scrum. So scrum is nothing but it's agile based on agile framework itself. There are two important roles in scrum. That's one is scrum master. The scrum master role is of a gatekeeper role, basically making sure that the team is following the scrum agile principle, not the scrum principle, the agile principles. And if there's any impediment, any distraction, making sure getting the required help for the team. Okay. On the other side, product owner is the owner of your project. Basically, he's the first subject matter expert. He's the one who is interacting with the stakeholders. He's the one who is setting the expectation. He's the one who is setting the vision for the team and setting the priorities for the team. So he or she is the very important person in the team, and this person needs to be the subject matter expert of the project. Because if this guy doesn't know what exactly he is doing, then forget about the complete team. So this person needs to be a subject matter expert for for the given project. Keep that in mind. So this is what we did till now. Now we'll understand a typical Scrum flow. Now, this is something you will be using in your day-to-day life, guys. This flow, which I will be talking about now, this is something you guys might be using it right now, or when you start working as a DevOps, then you will start using this flow. Now, what this flow is all about, this flow is nothing but it's a loop. So in it, Agile, we spoke about there is a 2 weeks, minimum 2 weeks and 8 weeks of iterations. And in sprint, we got minimum 1 week and 4 weeks of iterations. Okay, in Scrum we call it as sprints. In Agile we call it as iteration. That is the only difference, guys. Agile is basically used mainly for larger project wherein you need bigger iterations such as 8 weeks. Scrum is mainly for small and mid-scale projects. Okay, that is the only difference. Both are same. Scrum is following Agile principles itself. So Scrum is derived out of Agile itself. Okay, nothing different. Now, what this flow is all about. Now, this is a Scrum methodology, guys. Now, this is what we follow in day-to-day life. Now, this is how the work gets progress in iterations or sprint. Okay. Now, at the left-hand side top corner, if you see, there are user roles. So you got your product owner, you got your Scrum master, and you got your team. Now, yesterday I said the team is not only about the dev, there are QA, DevOps engineers, and others. Now, if you see this, the preparation part is about initial release, initial product backlog. Now, this is the backlog. Now, what exactly is backlog? Okay, so backlog is nothing but whatever application you're creating. For example, you're creating a shopping website. Your end goal is you need to create a shopping website like Amazon.com. That is the product which you're trying to create. So all your modules becomes a backlog. What are the modules you'll be creating for creating Amazon.com? Just think of it. You'll have a product page. You have a shopping cart page. you will have payment gateway, you will have in product page you'll got multiple pages such as child product page, men's product page, women product page, technology page, mobile page, laptop, and things like that. So there's so many categories I can talk about when you start creating a shopping website. Clothing section, grocery section, there could be many things now, correct? So these are what? These are all modules. Then these modules becomes your backlog, because you need to work on this module, you need to design this module, you need to do R&D on it, you need to start coding, you need to start testing, you need to start deploying this on your lower environment, then deploy it on your upper environment. This is what exactly these are your backlogs. So those backlogs will be created initially when the product owner will start interacting with the stakeholder. He will get some sort of expectation from the client. Now that expectation is getting created as a backlog. And who does this creation part? That creation part is done by the Scrum Master. Okay. So these backlogs will be created. Now you cannot work on everything at once. Correct? Remember what we were doing in waterfall model, we were taking the requirement all at once, starting designing all at once, started implementation all at once. Now in Scrum and Agile, we don't do. What we do, we take up the important and critical module first, develop that, deploy that, test that, get the feedback. If everything looks good, then we go to the second module. Correct? That is what the practice is all about. So you got all the modules created, you have all your backlogs created. Now suppose you're following a 2 week sprint. 2 weeks, there is a sprint of 2 week. Okay. Now at the day one of your sprint planning, all your backlogs will get updated. So whatever you are doing in this current week, the current sprint, not week, current sprint, that backlogs will be updated. And during the sprint planning meeting, your Scrum Master will be assigning those backlogs to individuals. When I say individuals, I'm talking about will get assigned to developers, QA, DevOps engineers, and things like that. So during the sprint planning meeting, those backlogs, so you picked up one module, that module your team will be working in the current sprint, and during the sprint planning meeting, those module related works gets assigned to individuals. Okay. Now this is a sprint planning. This is a meeting which gets which happens at the very beginning of your sprint. Now just imagine you have a sprint. You're following a 2 week sprint, and your sprint starting at Monday 20th. So your sprint is till 2nd of April. Okay. So on Monday, mostly you'll have this sprint planning meeting conducted. Okay. Or before that also, it could happen on Friday also, because this is sprint planning. On Monday onwards, the sprint will actually start. So you can have this meeting conducted on 17th also. Or if you're working on Saturdays, then 18th also. So when the sprint planning is done, you have a daily Scrum daily work call. Now, what exactly is daily Scrum and daily call? Now, this is a very short and sweet call, guys. So this is conducted on daily basis, and this should be short. If you're taking a daily call of 30 minutes and 1 hour, this is completely waste of time. Okay. So this call is mostly for them who have some issues with the work which has been assigned to them. If they are stuck somewhere, if they got some impediment, if they need some sort of assistance. So in doing this call, that person needs to come up and tell the Scrum Master that this is the issue which I'm facing. I may end up extending the time period, or I may need some sort of help or anything as XYZ that needs to be highlighted. Okay, so this is the call. So this is kind of a collaboration call which happens daily. So this needs to be, if you have any issues, any impediments, you need to highlight your issues and impediments over here. If you don't do it, guys, and at the end of the day, if you say, yeah, I was facing this issue, then that is not accepted in Scrum. That is the reason we have a daily call, daily meetup. so that people can open up and people can say what they are facing, and the Scrum Master can get you the necessary help in case of any issues or if you're stuck somewhere. So you have to, so this is a very important call, and it should be very short. The Scrum Master will quickly ask if there's any issue, any impediments, and yeah, if you have it, you say yes. If there's nothing, say no and hang up. That's it. I have seen people, I have seen projects around wherein they sit for 1 hour for this. One hour the Scrum call is going on. I don't know what they do, but that's completely in your 8 hours of working, and if you're wasting your time for 1 hour just for this meeting and everything, that's a completely waste of time. So this is not accepted. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Post that, once your sprint is done, you deploy your product, the product gets incremented, and then your product get released. Okay, then you got sprint review. So at the end of your sprint, you all again, you the complete team sit together, they see what all things we did, how many backlogs was completed, did we miss something, and all those review happens at the end of it. Okay, then this is again a kind of a meeting which happens at the end of your sprint. Then you got some sprint retrospective. So retrospective is basically between the stakeholders. So wherein your product owner, mainly the product owner, is giving feedback to all the stakeholders, like what exactly we did in the sprint, what all things modules we have completed, what are the future plans, what next we are doing, and all this gets discussed over here. And this circle continues each sprint. Each sprint, the next sprint, again we take some backlog, the backlog gets assigned, and the circle continues till the time we complete the entire project with quality product. This is what Scrum methodology is all about. This is what you will be following in real time when you start working as a, whether it's an agile framework, whether it's a Scrum framework. Anyone who is currently working in a Scrum team or in an agile team want to discuss if they do something different than what I have explained? If you're doing something different, or if you're doing the exact same thing, anyone wants to share? No one?
May I know sprint retrospective, please?
Sprint retrospective is mostly again a meeting which is conducted after the sprint gets over, but this meeting is mostly for the stakeholders, wherein your product owner is giving feedback like what exactly we did in the current sprint, and what are the future plan, what all things we are doing next, what all things we'll be doing next. That is what is discussed during this meeting.
The Scrum Master discuss about those client meetings, like
No,
what are the next step. Only all the team members may know.
yeah, not the Scrum Master. That is something mostly done by your product owner.
Like a business analyst or a project manager, like responsible.
You should, the naming convention may differ depending upon, in Scrum, if you're following the Scrum principles, and if you're
Okay,
forming a Scrum team, then over there we have product owners.
okay,
So the product owner could be somewhere, it could be a business analyst, it could be a project manager. So the naming, so basically even the project manager and the product owner does exactly the same thing. Business analyst may differ because his core role is to analyze what exactly is happening. Wherein product owner and this project manager, these guys are completely taking responsibility of everything. Your BA will not do that.
okay. Yeah, the current methodology I'm implementing in my current project, Scrum methodology.
Anything different you do,
Yeah, same
which
thing
you
I
want?
followed, but sprint retrospective part is not there. Remaining sprint planning, that is a 2 weeks of time. After the every
Hmm.
daily 30 minutes of time, a project manager discuss with the whatever the status of each project, each work, as well as where we are discussed, and create a one teams group. Suppose if we are facing any issue, we post whatever the issue we are facing into that Teams group. We review and immediately reply on that the responsive person as well as project manager. After that, once the issue is finished, after the um, product any increment is happened, after 15 days, 14 days completed, business only review the sprint review. After that, what are the pending issues are there, what are the current issues are working, what are the moving to product backlog issues to next sprint. This way of process we are implementing the current method, the current project.
Perfect. Perfect, Sunil. Anyone else wants to share? So retrospective meeting can also be called as basically a improvement meeting. This is also held to find ways and meaning to identify potential pitfalls, past mistakes, and things like that. So it's also an improvement meeting, guys. So basically, they look back what things you did well, what things was not well, what things we can improve, how we can be more productive, and all this discussion takes place. And feedbacks are given to the stakeholders during this meeting. Great. Thanks, Sunil, for sharing. Anyone else want to share anything else?
Thank you.
Anyone who is doing something different in your project? And guys, this is something, even though if you're not working as a DevOps engineer, nowadays everyone started following all this loop, all this sprint, all this iteration, even for support. Even for support, you will find out having a sprint call and things like that. Those people started following this cycle for even for operation work, not just for development. Okay, so you may come across this type of structure in your organization when you start working on it. Okay, let's move on. Now, after the Scrum, there is a lean development process. Now, what exactly is lean development process? How exactly it came in picture and things like that? Let's discuss. I'll not deep dive into it, but just for your understanding, let's go back 2 to 3 decades back during 90s, how the software development was happening when we didn't have all this agile and Scrum. How the software development used to happen. Now, if you remember during 90s, the software development was very sluggish. All these big giants, Microsoft, they had issues with the software development, wherein even to create a quality product, at the end, they used to wait for years, and after years, whatever product they are getting, they are just using it. It's not quality. Basically, they have spent a lot. Now they have no options but to use it. And it used to take years to develop any of these products. Now, what this big giant saw that on the other side there was manufacturing companies who were able to manufacture devices, who were able to manufacture product, and they were able to deliver the product throughout the globe. Now that is what they started looking into, like how come this manufacturing. So at that time, that was the industrial booming in 90s, 80s, and 90s. It was an industrial era. We all know how this big giant like Sony and all, they were able to create those DVD players, CD players, and they were able to send those across the world. Even in India, we used to have the Sony and all. Okay, now what exactly has inspired this software world, that how come this manufacturing world is able to do things more efficiently, and they're able to deliver not just in their own region, like in Sony, it's basically it's from Japan, not just in Japan, but they're able to deliver things in US, UK, India, and all other countries. Now, in order to understand how the manufacturing things work, this software giant people started visiting manufacturing companies. In by visiting the manufacturing companies, they came to know like, oh, how exactly they are efficiently acquiring the raw material, they are efficiently designing the product, they are efficiently building the product, they are efficiently delivering the product. So they went ahead, spent the time, understood what exactly they do, then tried implementing the same in software development world. So lean development process is basically from the manufacturing world. It was called as lean manufacturing. Now that lean manufacturing got converted into lean software development. So lean software development is a set of principles to deliver software according to principles of lean manufacturing. Lean is centered on preserving value with less work. Lean approaches are often called Six Sigma or just in time. So this lean manufacturing was a process which was used in manufacturing world, and they have acquired those understanding, those principles, and they created their own called lean software development. Okay. Now go through a book. There is a book called on the name of Bill Gates. You will find out how Bill Gates has spent time in the Sony manufacturing in Japan and how he has acquired knowledge, how exactly things are done. So you'll understand this lean very well over there. Okay. Now, why exactly I'm teaching you this? In lean, there is a method. Out of lean, there's a method called Kanban, which we will be using. Now, what is this Kanban? Now, Kanban, just to make you understand what is Kanban, just think of a car service company. When you take your car or bike to a service company, what do you see? Do you see a whiteboard, a big giant whiteboard? So they have a fixed number of cars which they take daily for the service. Okay. So whatever car they took, eventually that inventory get cleared at the end of the day and the car gets delivered with the servicing is done. So with this Kanban board, the whiteboard, what you see, so they got whatever car has entered the inventory. So they have a sticky note, they write the car name and what the work needs to be done and stick it on the board. And when when they start working on that car, the sticky note gets moved from left to right. So it goes to in progress, done. If there's any issue, then it goes to some other segment. So basically the sticky note is moving from left to right. Eventually at the end of the day, your complete inventory, suppose you took 20 cars for servicing today, you complete those 20 cars in a day. That whiteboard and the sticky note is known as Kanban. Kanban was a person who has developed this methodology. This is again, Kanban is again derived out of lean development. So this was basically taken in from the lean manufacturing. Now, now how did we how did we use the same Kanban methodology in software development? Now we got Kanban boards even in software development. In place of physical board, we have virtual boards. The virtual board in which we got all our backlog and we are just moving the backlog. So in the current sprint, how many backlogs we are completing, that becomes my inventory. And as soon as the people start working on it, it starts moving from left to right and eventually we complete the development. That is what Kanban is all about. So Kanban is nothing but it's a scheduling system for lean and just in time progress. The physical cards, the sticky notes which I'm talking about, called Kanban, that moves throughout the process from start to finish. The aim is to keep a constant flow of Kanban so that the inventory is required at the end of the process, just that much is created at the start. So whatever inventory you have created at the start, we complete. So whatever backlog, let's talk about in software. Whatever backlogs you took during the sprint planning, so we are able to complete those backlogs during the end of the sprint. That is what Kanban takes care. This is how the board will look like. You have what is this user story and all, we'll understand that later. For now, just think of it as a backlog. The backlog starts working, the developer starts working on the backlog. It's in progress, developed, tested, completed. This is how you can work on Kanban. So what all methods we spoke about? We spoke about starting with waterfall, agile, scrum, lean development, and Kanban. 5 methods. Okay. Now Anyone has any questions with this, any of these methods what we have discussed? Any questions, guys, till now? Okay, no question. Let's move on. Then now actually talk about where is DevOps now. Now we spoke about all this method. These methods are basically talking about software development. They are not talking about deployment at all. For deployment, as I said yesterday, we got DevOps. Now DevOps talks about development as well as operation, wherein all other method which we spoke, Agile, Scrum, they are just talking about development. They're not talking about operational work over here or the deployment work over here. Now this is the DevOps loop wherein you do the planning, coding, building, testing, releasing, deploying, operating, monitoring. This loop continues, and for each cycle, this is the loop what is followed. In DevOps, we do continuous planning, we do continuous deployment, we do continuous testing, release, monitoring, feedback, and optimization. Now in DevOps, now previously before DevOps, after the testing, after the release, the developer was not taking any responsibility henceforth. Now in DevOps, if you see, from the planning till the operation, everyone is involved. Everyone is involved from the planning till the operation. If anything happens during the operation phase, the developer and the complete team is involved and they are looking into it. So continuous planning, development, testing, release and deploy, continuous monitoring and optimization. So your development team as well as operational team, everyone is involved from start to end. That is what DevOps is all about. Benefit of using DevOps: predictability. So basically started doing things in sprint. You can predict what you're doing, how you're doing, and what can be improved. Maintainability, you can easily maintain, you can optimize what exactly. Reproducibility, that's an important factor in DevOps. So whatever you do, making sure that that can be reused. Like suppose you are writing a YAML file, making sure that YAML file can be reused. You're not hard coding. If you're writing infra as a code script, making sure those scripts can be used for other projects also. So reproducibility is a key over here. That is something we'll see when we start actually doing the practicals. I'll show you what this reproducibility means. Greater quality, definitely you're doing so many testing, you're doing things in sprint, getting feedback. Definitely you are looking for a quality product. Better time to market, reduce risk, cost efficient and resilient. These are some benefits of using DevOps. Okay. Now this loop, what you saw, there are various tools involved in this loop. Like if you see the planning you could have your Jira, Confluence. The coding you will have your Git repositories, GitHub, GitLab. For building you will have Jenkins, Bamboo. For testing you will use some sort of JTest and other sort of tools. For releasing you will use other sort of tools. For deployment, so there are all these are the tools which is involved. Okay, but where does Azure DevOps fit in? Azure DevOps is a union of people, process, product to enable continuous delivery and value to end user. So basically, Azure DevOps can take care of all these things for you. For planning, we got Azure Boards. For coding, we got Azure Repos. For building, we got your release build pipeline. For testing, we got Azure Test. For release, we got Azure Release Pipeline. For deployment, we got Azure Deploy. And operation and monitor can also be done using a third-party tools, and we can easily integrate those. So the point
Question.
is, you don't. Yep. Tell me.
So, how often do they integrate third-party tools or applications to Azure DevOps?
It's up to the project where you're working. Like suppose if you have like for a very simple example, if your company is using ServiceNow ticketing tool for example, and you want to trigger something once the ServiceNow ticket status changes or anything as such happens, and based on that notification you need to have some build pipelines to be triggered or release pipeline to be triggered. So ServiceNow becomes a third party tool. You can easily integrate ServiceNow with Azure DevOps. So if you have any such requirement, you will do it. Second
Uh,
example, just think of you want to send a notification to some third party tool that the build got completed, your release got completed, or whether it succeeded or failed. You want to send a notification to a Slack channel, just imagine. Okay. Your team is working on Slack and you want to send a notification, automation notification over there. Then you can again integrate Slack. Slack is again a third party notification tool wherein you can integrate. So depending upon your requirement, Azure DevOps can be integrated very easily with all these tools. Now, suppose you have a requirement that no, I don't want to use Azure Boards. My work item is there on Jira. We have already purchased enterprise license of Jira and we are using Jira since last 5 years. Now, I don't want to migrate my work items from Jira to Azure Boards. No problem. You use Jira and whatever you do in Jira that will reflect on Azure DevOps. Integrate Jira with Azure DevOps. Someone will come and say, no, my source code is there on GitHub, but I want to run my CI/CD on Azure DevOps. Quite possible. Someone will say my build is running on Jenkins, but I want to do the release part at Azure DevOps. Quite possible. So depending upon what projects you're working, if you want to do integration, it can be easily done. One important thing, Azure DevOps is a big umbrella, guys. It has everything within. Now, just imagine if you want to do a planning, if you're not using Azure DevOps, the one tool you will be using Jira. If you're doing coding, the other tool you'll be using GitHub. If you're doing build, the other tool you'll be using Jenkins. If you're using test, there will be other tool. If you're doing artifact management, you'll be using either JFrog, Artifactory, and things like that. For release, you will be integrating other sort of plugins to your Jenkins. So how many different tools you're working, how many different tools you're integrating, how many different tools you're collaborating with. Now this entire thing can be easily done in Azure DevOps. One single place, everything will be done. And plus, if you need any third-party integration, even that is possible. That is the reason why Azure DevOps is quite famous after 2019. Why after 2019? Because previously Azure was only focused on centralized version control. It had its own version control called TVFS, that's Team Foundation Version Control. Now in 2019, Azure has acquired GitHub. Not fully, partially it has acquired GitHub. Now Azure repos, what you saw in the last week session where we did Azure repos, correct? That was nothing but it is what Azure has acquired and renamed it to Azure repos. So now Azure also knows it that they need to go into distributed version control model or else they will be wiped out from the market. Now after doing that, they have completely revamped. So this Azure DevOps is not a new tool, guys. It was named as Team Foundation Server previously. Now after integrating Git, they have completely revamped and they named it as Azure DevOps. And let me tell you, I have worked on the previous version of it also, and the newer version I'm already working. It is a drastic change and the improvement what they did. After 2019, people started slowly and steadily moving on to Azure DevOps because everything is there over here. You don't need to jump around or fork around multiple other tools to do stuff. Hence, now if you start seeing the trend after 2020 and 2021, it has completely taken over other tools. Hence, people are, and it can be easily integrated with all your clouds. It's not just Azure Cloud or AWS Cloud or GCP. It can be easily integrated with. If you want to deploy your things on AWS Cloud, even that is possible. Okay, so keep that in mind. These are
Thank
the
you.
important no follow. So these are the important component of Azure We got, as I said, boards, repos, pipeline, test plan, and artifact. This is all we'll see. Okay, I think someone was asking something. Yes, please tell me.
Quick question.
Yep.
So at some point, are you going to be teaching us the third party to like Jenkins, engineers and all of that? Or you're
No,
just focusing on Azure tools only?
no. Third party tool, Jenkins and all, these are all together a different CI tools. Like if you see Jenkins, Bamboo, these are all together a different tool. It's a different course altogether. In this course, the focus area is Azure DevOps. But integration part, I'll be just for your understanding how things gets integrated. I may integrate some third-party tools such as Slack and all, just to show you how do we integrate third-party tools with Azure DevOps. But the focus area is Azure DevOps, guys. Now, many of you will ask me that, yeah, Azure DevOps is fine, but what if people start asking questions on Jenkins and things like that? So let me
Correct.
tell you guys, there are so many tools, not just one or two tools. There are around 50, 100 CI/CD tools in the market right now. It's not easy for you or not for me to go and learn everything. Now, how do you tackle these questions in interview? Now, the first person is asking, can you build a Java Maven application in Jenkins? No, Java Maven application build, do you think the steps will change if you use Jenkins or if you use Bamboo or if you use Azure DevOps? The steps remains exactly the same, correct? You will be doing Maven clean, Maven validate, Maven compile, Maven package. That is what, these are the steps what you will run, correct? Will the Maven or the POM XML file will change when you go on Jenkins or when you go on Bamboo or when you do it on Azure DevOps? The answer is no. What does change? The GUI. Your Jenkins GUI will be totally different. Or you create your project in Jenkins, Azure DevOps GUI will differ. Now, if you know the flow, if suppose if you're getting a question that can you build a Java Maven project on a Jenkins, you can simply ask, dude, I have not worked on Jenkins, but I know how Java Maven project gets built. I can do it very easily with Azure DevOps. If I am the interviewer, if you are able to give me the complete flow, how a Java application gets built, that is more than enough for me. Why? Because if you know how to build, how to release, whether it is Azure DevOps or Jenkins or some other tool, by doing a bit of R&D for 1-2 days, you can easily do the same thing on Jenkins also for me. This is how you need to tackle questions, guys. Okay, now everything remains same. Your build remains same, your release remains same. The only difference you will find out, the GUI. And if you're writing the scripts, so in Azure DevOps, again, we use a very simple YAML scripting in Azure DevOps, wherein in Jenkins we use Groovy. Okay, and that is, if you are very familiar with Java, then you can write those, or it's not that easy and straightforward, let me tell you. Okay, but this is how you should tackle question, because not just with the CI/CD tool, guys. Just imagine Azure, we understood Azure repos. You have seen like what are the merge type, or what exactly we do, what is rebasing. Do you think this concept changes when you go on GitHub? No, it's the same concept. That is the git merge type what we have learned. It's not Azure repos proprietary merge type what they're using, or GitHub proprietary. Again, if you get question that do you know GitHub? Yeah, I've worked on Azure repos. It's not a big deal for me to work on GitHub. It's just a change in GUI. This is how you need to tackle questions when you get similar tools question. Now, same goes with configuration management, whether you have worked on Ansible, Chef, Puppet. So these are all similar tools. So you need to pick up what tool you need to learn, have expertise, and whenever you get opportunity next, that yeah, I need to work on Jenkins also now because this is the project requirement. Very easily, if you know the flow, Just go on YouTube, watch any free videos. Even I have few free videos on AWS DevOps also. Just see what the flow is, how the tool works, and start working. That is how in DevOps world you will survive. DevOps, in weekly basis, there are new tools which is coming up in the market. Weekly basis. Now someone spoke about Nexus. A artifact like Nexus, yeah. Artifact is same like Nexus. You got JFrog, you got Artifactory. These are all same. What is the core responsibility of these tools? Storing your artifacts, sharing the artifacts, collaboration. Same thing you can do with Azure DevOps. You got Azure artifacts. It's the exact same thing what you can do. Making sense?
Yeah, so are the artifacts the shippable the shippable codes, or what are those actually?
Artifacts are basically, it's the packages which you use in your application. You create a custom applications, and in your custom application you tend to use third-party packages. Okay, now there's a great chance that those packages are you downloading it from third-party tools. Like if you're using npm, you go to npm and got those packages. If you're using .NET, you go on to NuGet.org. If you're using Maven, then you go to Maven.org. So basically making sure those plugins, those packages are well secured. So your custom application, you convert it as an artifact. That artifact can be shipped across to other application. It can be shared with other developers. Using that artifact, you can even do your build process. Like if you want to do, there's a, when you do a .NET build, there's a step called NuGet restore. The restoration is basically what it is doing. It is going and downloading the packages from the third party site. But what if the NuGet.org itself is down? Your NuGet restore command will not work. So in such cases, you can point to your own feed. You can download the packages from your own feed. So I have a complete session on artifact, guys. Don't worry about. So basically, artifact is mainly used for sharing, collaborating your application packages. Your complete application can also be shipped as an artifact. Okay, depending your
Quick
use.
question, sir. Sorry. What services under Azure DevOps are free? Because I know the reason why some companies use Jenkins and other third parties is because they free and open source. So what services under Azure DevOps? What services are free under Azure DevOps?
Very good question. Okay. So Azure DevOps is not open source, guys. We all know it's a Microsoft proprietary tool, correct? So definitely if Microsoft is giving something to you, it's not free. Now, what is free? That is the valid question. Now, the free part is the agent pool. We get 1800 minutes free. We get single agent pool. Now, what exactly agent pool? I'll talk about that later. We get one Azure pipelines free, and we get one self-hosted. What exactly is this? We'll talk about this in later session. Hosted free. Plus we get artifact storage free of 2 GB. This is what we get free, and this is more than enough for our learning and testing and development. Now if you're, whatever I do in my course, we are doing in a free tier. We are not spending in even a single penny on Azure DevOps, guys, to be very specific. This is more than enough for our learning. Okay, later when you go to the enterprise version in a company and such, then for this agent pool, as you increase these numbers, there is a charges based on these numbers, and when you increase this size, there's a charges based on this size. Okay, that is not that much, guys. That's very minimal. If you go and look into Azure DevOps charges, that's very minimal. So any company who wants to have an enterprise as type of support, who has a SLA kind of thing signed with Microsoft, they will not go with any open source tool. Okay, open source tool, there's no one to catch. In Azure DevOps, you will have Microsoft and they will be supporting this for any XYZ. Even in Jenkins nowadays, guys, no one uses open source. Even Jenkins has an enterprise version. Okay, so if your company is using Jenkins, they're definitely using an enterprise version. They're not using an open source tool. So the open source is good for your practice and development, but full-fledged using that tool into your production, you may do it, you may not do it, because if you do it, you have to take care of all the packages, all the versions. You need to maintain this all by yourself. Think of Red Hat. What is Red Hat? You have an open source OS, CentOS. Why you use RHEL? Why do you use Red Hat? Because that is an enterprise version of CentOS, and that is supported by Red Hat. If anything happens to your operating system, you go to Red Hat, ask them what is wrong. Can't we just use CentOS? CentOS is free, correct? It's there in the market. Go and download it and use it. It is free, open source. But still, companies go with RHEL. They buy RHEL license because that is Red Hat licensing part, what they're paying, so that if something happens, XYZ happens, they can go back to Red Hat, ask them what is the issue. So any company, small company startup, they may end up using this open source, but any enterprise level company, they will not risk their application production with this open source tool. They will buy some sort of support. They will give the responsibility to some sort of company. They will have a service level agreement signed with them. If anything XYZ happens, they will catch those people. Just keep this in mind. Make sense? Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes. What about Azure repos, Azure boards? Are they free as well?
There's no cost for that. Azure repos, these Azure boards, and there's no cost anything as such. This is the cost which I'm talking about. This is the two things which you will get charged for. Your agent pool, basically the minutes, the build and release, what you do, the minutes, and this is the storage. The rest everything is free.
Thank you.
Not not just free because you buy, enterprise level you buy a license of it, so you get everything with it. Okay, guys, are we clear with the charges? Don't worry, you're not getting charged anything when you start working on Azure DevOps. You can use, so this is just one of my project. If you see my other project, I got more than 20 projects inside it. If I switch to my different account, this is my new account because that is completely filled, and still till now I have not paid even a single penny to Azure DevOps. I have paid for Azure Cloud. That's totally fine because I use their VMs, I use their servers and things like that. Over here, I'm not paying anything. As simple as that. Okay. Now let's move forward, guys. Now we'll start with Azure Boards. So Azure Boards has four different ways of basically capturing your work items. Now, what do I mean by work items? Your backlogs. Where do you create the backlogs? So remember the Scrum sprint, you had something called, in the preparation section, you had something called initial backlogs and things like that, correct? Where do you capture those? Where exactly it gets created and how exactly it gets created? So Azure Boards has four types. It got basic, it got Scrum, it got Agile, and it got CMMI. It got four types using which it will capture your backlogs. Now let's talk about basic. No, again, work item is not similar to user story. Work item is basically you're talking about overall work items. You're talking about all your backlogs and things like that. User story is one of the part which gets assigned to the developers to start working on it. Okay. So we'll understand that. Well, when you understand this epic and all, we'll understand that. Okay. So in basic, you see only three sections. You got portfolio backlog, you got product backlog, and you got task. Portfolio backlog is known as epic. Now, what is portfolio backlog? What is portfolio backlog? So this is the product which you're trying to build, shopping website application. Now, what will be your portfolio backlog for your shopping website? So portfolio backlog could be your product page module. It could be authentication authorization module. It could be shopping cart module. It could be a payment gateway module. So your top level module becomes your portfolio. So when you show your portfolio to your, like suppose you're showing your own portfolio to someone, what will you show? The top level of achievements, like I've done the masters, I've done my engineering, I've done completed this project, I've done this. These are your top priorities, things which you will showcase to others, correct? Same if you're building an application, what are the top modules? That is something becomes your portfolio. So all such portfolios are getting captured as an epic, that is known as epic, inside your Azure boards. This portfolio backlogs are getting captured as an epic inside your Azure boards. On the other hand, product backlog. The product backlog is nothing but the sub page of your portfolio backlog. Now your product backlog is something like this was your portfolio product page module. What will be your product backlog? Your child page module, your men's product page, your women's product page, your technical page, your laptop section, your cell phone section, your other device section. These all what it becomes? It becomes your product backlog. All these product backlogs, this is very basic, guys. This basic is not used for any large or mid scale or even a small scale project. This is basically if you have couple of people working together and you just want, for a namesake, you want to do a work item management, then you use this basic, or else it is not used. It's very easy and very simple. This is just for namesake. So just understand the product backlog. It's marked as issue. Then whatever you start working on it, like, or you start working on any of your backlog, then you create a task for yourself and you start working on it. The actual will start in Scrum. You either use Scrum or you will be using Agile in reality when you're working with Azure DevOps. Now let's understand Scrum. Now your portfolio backlog in Scrum itself is divided into two categories. You got epic and feature. Now your epic is something. Now imagine that you're creating a product backlog page. That product backlog page will have multiple features. Now what are the features? The product will have child product page, men's product page, and XYZ. So that becomes a feature. All these will be part of your portfolio backlog. Then now this is what is backlog. Now you got your epic and feature all created. This is who create this? This is created by Scrum Masters. Now this is the actual section, the backlog, wherein you do your wherein you work on these during your sprint. Now this is something PBI, the short form. This is the jargon what we use. PBI, that's nothing but product backlog item. This is something gets assigned to the development team. Now based out of this feature, what could be a backlog? Just imagine you're working on child product page. This is one of the feature you're working. What could be a backlog? What could be a PBI? Designing the child product page, developing the child product page, adding filter option in the child product page. All this becomes your PBI. This is something will be assigned to the respective developers, your PBI. Okay. Now based on this PBI, this task. Now suppose I was assigned something called designing child product page. I'm a developer. My Scrum Master assigned this task to me. Now I'll start creating tasks for myself. This is something will be created by me. All others, whatever you saw, this will be created by Scrum Master. Now this is something will be created by me. So this is the place wherein you will capture your hours. This is the place wherein you will be capturing your hours. So like suppose in a sprint, what all things you did. So I did R&D for 2 hours. I did coding for 2 hours. I did testing for 2 hours. I did implementation for 2 hours. I did designing for 4 hours. All these numbers will be captured by me. And these tasks, this is something I will be creating, guys. Okay. Now this is what I'll be doing till here. Scrum Master will create things for me. This PBI will be assigned to me. Then I'll be creating the task for myself and I'll start working on it. This is the flow. The circle, the Scrum circle which you saw, the loop which you saw, this is what we do. This is how we'll be making sure all the work items are managed over here. This is the, hence this is called as work item management. You put all your work item because you need to keep a track what you're doing, what you're not doing. Okay, in Scrum, if you want to do a work tracking, even that is the option available with us. And if you want to do a issue tracking, even that is the option available with us. Now, what is different between Scrum and Agile? As we all know, both are same. Now, if you come down, it's only the naming convention, guys. In Backlog, we call the PBI is called as user story. Now, do you know what is user story? Someone asked me work item versus user story. So user story is something, it's a task which gets assigned to you to complete during the sprint or iteration. It's just the naming convention. We call it as PBI over there. We call it as user story in Agile. And issues in Scrum, we call it as impediments. And in Agile, we call it as issues. That is the only difference. We select Agile if we want bigger iteration. We select Scrum if we want smaller iterations. Based on that, only the projects are getting selected. Rest, everything remain exactly the same. Okay. Now we got something called CMMI model also. That's a capability maturity model. Over here, we call it as requirement. In Scrum, we call it as PBI. In Agile, we call it as user story. And in CMMI, we call it as requirement. CMMI has some additional feature of issue, change, and risk management. Now these are taken in from ITIL. Like if you guys have worked with ITIL, Information Technology Infrastructure Library, it's again a process, it's again a model, which is basically for your support related activity. Your P1, P2, P3, your issue management, risk management, access management, all are done using ITIL process. So yeah, we took this CMMI has took three things out of ITIL: issue management, change management, and risk management, and integrated that with your software development. Very hardly you will see someone using this CMMI. 100% of time Agile and Scrum. This is how in real time things will be used. Now tomorrow, the project which we created previously, this project was basically based on basic. That is a default model which gets created. How do you know it's basic or not? If you click on this boards work item and click on this new work item, you see only three options: epic, issue, and task. So this means this is basic. And let me tell you, if you select the process once, guys, you cannot change the process. I cannot switch to Scrum or Agile now. If you see this, this is basic got selected over here. Now tomorrow I'll have to create a new project which will be based out of Agile, and then we'll do all this. We'll see how the epic is created, how feature is created, what is user story and things like that. This is something we'll see in tomorrow's session. Okay, that's it for me. If anyone has any questions, please do let me know. From tomorrow onwards, we'll start with the demo. And this is the exact things we'll follow, and we'll create the backlog based out of this. Okay, guys, that's it. Anyone, any questions, any doubt, please let me know, and we'll start with the demo from tomorrow onwards. Work item demo. No questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Let's meet up tomorrow and let's continue with this topic. Bye bye.